So football season is officially here, and that only means one thing: the fall is coming, right? It's not quite here in South Carolina. It's still pretty hot. Maybe some areas it's kind of fall time, but it's not really fishing like fall yet. Santee, I'd say somewhere early November, maybe late October, fish start getting back up shallow, and you can kind of fish that, I don't know, 7 foot and less range here. But it's different all over the country, depends on where you go. But I just kind of want to run through some of my favorite baits. A lot of them are probably pretty traditional, but in my article I named a couple of good baits that I like. So I'm just going to show you a few. When it comes to topwater, probably my favorite is a poplar, right? This is an evergreen. It's just a good bait, really, kind of all year round, but especially in the fall. I could throw this thing all day long, and fall is definitely the time of year where I would throw topwater the most. Like there are days throughout the year period where I'll throw topwater all day long, but more in the fall than any time. Like you could just pick up a topwater bait first thing in the morning and just throw it all day long. I like a poplar, a spook, or any kind of walking bait. I really like that too, over the top of grass, or just you know, going down the riverbank, the edge of the lake, or around docks, whatever. A spook and a poplar are my favorite, but I really like the poplar. If I can get dialed into an area where I know there's fish, I love slowing down and just throwing a poplar. It's one of my favorite things to do. Then also, you know, like on Santee and a lot of other places, like the Ultimate Angler Championship is coming up on Guntersville. There's a lot of grass, and it'll probably be a frog will be used a lot, and it's another one of my favorite baits. You know, I throw it around lily pads and around trees and around the edges of grass. You know, any kind of vegetation that your lake or river may have, a frog in the fall time is just good. And just my opinion of why topwater works so good in the fall is, as those bait are moving from the main river channel or the main lake, and they're kind of heading towards the bank as it cools down, they're still just scurrying around in their schools somewhere in the middle of the water column. And sure, there's always fish feeding on crawfish and stuff on the bottom, but it seems like this is when you see most of your school in action, as the bait comes back up, and maybe they're 5 to 10 foot under the surface of the water. So you have a lot of suspended fish, you have a lot of fish chasing bait, a lot of fish feeding on shad, on Santee. You know, then you've got herring lakes and stuff like that as well. But another good bait that I didn't put in my article, but it's a good search bait, is a buzz bait, right? And it's just one of those baits where you can pick up and you can fly down the bank and fish the backs of pockets, the backs of creeks, or wherever you think you need to start at, and it'll tell you if there's fish in there, you know, pretty quick. So those are my favorite topwater baits. Now I'm going to stay away from stuff like, or topwater baits like a devil's horse. I'm not saying that you can't catch them on it, but don't really typically throw a devil horse in the fall. But still going to throw your frogs and your poplars, and your walking baits and your buzz baits, of course. And then when I get around some fish, always have a chatterbait tied on. Always have a chatterbait. But a lipless, you get into the backs of these pockets and you could yo-yo it, and you could search around, and if maybe they're not schooling, or maybe it's too windy to throw a topwater, and you got a fish like a bait in the water column. You're gonna, you know, I like a rattle trap and a chatterbait. You just cast this thing out there. It's just a perfect fall. This is a Strike King red-eye shad, but it's just a good, perfect fall bait imitator, right? And you'll notice kind of the trend. Why I like the poplar and why I like the trap. They're really really similar in size, and it really imitates the bait in the fall pretty good, right? You know, spinner baits are always good. Just kind of running through some that I like, and then one that I didn't talk about in my video that I'll throw a decent amount is just a swim bait, right? And this is a 4-inch swim bait. I kind of like a 3.25, maybe even a little bit better, but on Santee I'll throw the 4-inch one a good bit, and I usually just put it on some sort of jig head. This is an 1/8 ounce, you know, an 1/8 ounce. It just depends on how deep you're fishing. The deeper you're fishing, the bigger the jig head that you need to put on. But this is an 1/8 ounce. You know, I'll throw an 1/8 ounce, probably 5 foot of water or less. If I get into that 8 foot range, I'll go to a 1/4 ounce or 3/8. And you just start right in the middle there, and you're just gonna thread it on just like you would anything else. It's super simple. Slide it up there, and boom, there you go. Now you've got a perfectly rigged just swim bait, and you can throw this on like 12-pound fluorocarbon or something, and you just cast it and reel it real slow, and fish just come up and smoke it, right? So fall time's a good time. It's all about bait fish in the fall. You know, like in the springtime, it's all about, you know, throwing something red, and the fish are just feeding up, and it's pre-spawn, and then you get into post-spawn, and they're, you know, it's a lot of top water and stuff. Fall is all about the bait fish. Pretty much everywhere. I haven't fished everywhere, but I would say it's all pretty similar. So those are some baits that I'm super confident in. You know, they're baits that I'll have tied on all throughout the fall. And then the last one we'll talk about, one of my favorite baits, and I promise you do not have to have forward-facing sonar to catch them on a jerkbait. I was throwing a jerkbait 10 years before forward-facing sonar came out and catching fish, but it's also another one of those things where, sure, you could use it as a search bait, and it gets bites. A jerkbait gets an enormous amount of bites, and I love it for that. But this is like, let's say you lived on a lake where, like, Santee doesn't have a lot of pockets. Like, you're not running down the back of a creek and getting to the back and fishing the last pocket back there, or anything like that. It's a lot of open water, main lake, big flats on Santee, so it's a little different. But if you get into an area on Santee where you know there's some fish, and you just throw this jerkbait around, they'll bite it. Like, you'll know if there's fish there pretty quickly. It's just those suspended fish in the fall. It just gets right above their head, and they just can't stand it, right? And just change up your action until you get some bites. But it's just a deadly bait. But like this, you could throw it on points. You could, you know, run up to a point, put your trolling motor down, make 4 or 5 casts across the point, and if there's fish there, like, they'll see it for a long way. They'll hear it. They'll come get it. You can throw it in the backs of pockets. It's just another really good bait. So yeah, tie you on a jerk bait, tie you on a pawpaw and a spook, or whatever you feel most comfortable with, and that's kind of where I would start at in the fall. And it's getting there. Like I say, football season is here. In the fall time, tournaments are about to start ramping back up, kind of like on Santee, maybe where you live. It never stops, but on Santee, it's kind of dead through the summer. There's not really much going on at all until we usually have like one big tournament here at the end of September, and then, you know, they'll start some little team trails or whatnot. But it's kind of dead through the summer. So tournaments are starting to pick back up on Santee, so I'll be out there fishing a few of them. Yeah, anyway, those are just some good baits that are going to work in the fall, no matter where you live, no matter what time of the day. Pawpaws work all day long. Buzzbaits, you can catch them from daylight to dark in the middle of the day. It's just, fall is just a fun time, but the key is searching, finding you some fish, finding you some bait, and catching a few. So guys, everyone want to come on a trip, just find my website, Corey Casey Fishing and Guideservice.com. You can find me on social media there, Corey Casey Guide Service. Book a trip, come hang out for the day. Let's go catch a few. Later.